What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys growing on you live. Today, we're going to have on the one and only, the legendary vocalist, vocal trainer, coach, Melissa Cross. This is going to be absolutely awesome.
Hi.
Hello, Melissa. How are you doing?
Grandma figured it out. Grandma figured it out.
You know what? I appreciate you taking this in. I try to send as much, instructional and help that I can to help with this not being too difficult of a process, because it's hard on me sometimes too.
Also, senior citizens get, a little extra help, right? You know what? I've been practicing going live on Instagram, and I have the hardest time reading the comments and answering questions at the same time. So all these people are like, I was there. You didn't say hi to me. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Right. I mean, and typically I try my best as well. Like, I appreciate everybody that's watching live, but these also go on YouTube as well. So if, people want to reach out or leave comments, they can do that there too. But, especially a lot of times I have people say, hey, I had a question that I asked, I'm sorry, I'm doing the interview and I'm speaking with you. And I feel like it's kind of rude if I'm not giving you the attention, as opposed to other people. So it's nothing against them, or that. It's just, I appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate the honor of being asked, of course, and I'm glad you're doing the chat and not me.
Right.
I just get to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. So on Growing on You Live, typically what we do is we have a couple of icebreaker, just fun questions initially, and then the remainder of the interview is about you and your craft and your amazing career of work that you have. And then I have one finale that I wrote just for you, Melissa. So if you're all cozy and ready to go, we're going to start this up.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, beautiful. So first off, my wife and I do some traveling, and if we were coming local to you, we were coming to New York, and I asked you for a local restaurant, whether it be pre or post COVID, where would you point us? Where would we have to go, and what food item would we have to try?
Oh, New York has the best food in the world.
I know, that's what I hear.
That's really hard because, let's pretend COVID didn't happen. Right, because a lot of restaurants that I love probably won't be there anymore because they couldn't stay alive. Here's the thing. New York is full of beautiful secrets. So, for instance, if you know New York, you know that there's this really cool mom and pop hole-in-the-wall barbecue place in Jackson Heights, Queens. Or, there are these secret, backdoor places that you can get these things. But, it depends on what you can't. There's too many kinds of food. There's so many kinds of food. It's like, well, what do you want? Do you want from Afghanistan or Ethiopia or India or everywhere? It's just great food
and
great
all
people.
Done well is what I hear.
Yeah,
it's the best.
The people of New York are heart, real.
Right. Beautiful.
Real.
I love it. All right. Yeah. And let me ask you, if you could create your dream band, so you were creating a dream band where you were going to be the lead singer, what 4 other members would you have in this band to create your band? So you have, 2 guitarists, a bassist, and a drummer. What's the band going to be? If you
dead
could choose?
Or alive? Do they have to be? They have to be alive, right?
I mean, you can go dead. Sometimes that makes it a little bit harder, but if you have a couple people in mind, go for it.
Okay. I would probably do maybe Roy Mayorga or let's see, as drums, or let's see, Dave Lombardo.
Oh my God.
Or there's one. Jay Weinberg.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
and then for guitar, I mean, there's so many great musicians. I that's really, really hard. I mean, I would probably like maybe Doc Coyle as my guitar player because he's a really interesting guitar player.
Sure.
I mean, not famous people that are extraordinary musicians, so I don't know.
Those
I
are great
like a
answers.
band. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean Jay
I love.
Weinberg, I was a big fan of his, like even in Against Me when he was in that band and then he made the move to Slipknot, you're like, wow.
Can I tell
Super
you
talented
something?
guy.
I
Sure.
actually met him when he was like not even 16.
Oh wow.
I was on the Conan O'Brien show, and it was
Oh, okay.
after I had, that was when he was on like CBS or something. No, NBC.
Let me see.
And he brought, I was a guest on the show, and Max, his dad, who was the drummer
Okay.
for Letterman, brought his kid, and his kid was waiting for me to get my autograph.
Oh wow, no
And
kidding.
then 10 years later, I'm at the Misfits reunion show, and I'm way up at the top, like sort of towards the nosebleeds, and he's down on the front row, and he goes, "Melissa, climb down." So I got kind of stayed. I mean, like you know how you pass, I crowd surfed down the bleachers and sat
Oh my,
next. They all held Grandma up all the way down because
that
I
is
couldn't
sick.
get out and down the stairs. My only crowd surfing experience in the audience.
Oh my God. That is amazing. Wow,
Yeah,
that
he's a
is
really good
awesome.
guy. He's a really good guy. Okay,
Nice, nice.
yeah.
That is so cool. All right, so now digging into, to you and your musical love and passion. Tell us about, what music was playing in your household when you were young, when you were growing up. I know your father was real influential with getting you records and, you introducing rock and roll. Tell us about some of the stuff you're listening to.
Well, first of all, I have to tell you, I laughed so hard when that was like you sort of gave me a preview of what you might ask, right? And that was one of the questions. And you actually said, so what else did your parents turn you on to besides Janis Joplin? I was like, dude, you either have a math problem or you don't know how old I am because I was in the audience for Janis Joplin. My parents were listening to like, Robert Goulet and Andy Williams and Frank Sinatra. And my parents were like, 40s, 50s, like early 50s, right? I
Right.
was 13 when I was at the show. Janice
Okay.
opened for Jimi Hendrix. Like my first concert was The Who. I was 11. It was 1968.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
lived there.
okay.
I'm a rock chick from the way back.
Well, I mean, because they initially, I mean, they introduced you to like 50s rock and roll, though, right?
No, my dad had this. My dad was British, right?
Hmm.
In Britain, I don't know if you know this, but they don't compartmentalize music so much. Like
Oh,
in this country, you have like these, formats, and there's, your active rock and your rap and your, R&B and your top 40 stations, and everything is compartmentalized. But English people just like there's two kinds of music. There's good music and bad music. So there was a big smorgasbord of like there was some surfer music like Jan and Dean. There was some like Motown, a little early Motown. There was some Elvis, but there was also Nat King Cole
oh yeah, okay, wow.
and like crooners. So it was a
Hmm.
combination of crooners. So my first experience with obsession was when I was 7 and I got my first record, and it was the Beatles. It was the Beatles. So
Nice.
I was a Beatle maniac, completely out of my mind, screaming when they came on the TV, like all the rest of the girls in America. I was a Beatle maniac, had the lunchbox, the drink, the bracelets, the posters. I saw all the movies 50 million times. I'm a Beatles freak,
Hmm.
right? So that was like,
Okay.
that's my Nirvana.
Yeah.
John
Okay.
Lennon,
Okay.
John Lennon is my is like your Kurt Cobain is my John Lennon. So anyway,
Yeah.
but I've
Yeah.
been in obsession. I've been in that obsession since I was 7 years old. I never stopped. So I've been through it all.
Okay. Wow.
I've been through, the
Sure.
whole thing, Genesis and progressive rock and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and all the rock stuff and British rock. And then I went to the California thing with all the folky stuff with Joni Mitchell and Jackson Brown. I mean, and then, in the early 80s, the rap thing came and I sort of watched that come, and I was like, and then, and then came the metal kids.
Right. Right. So where did that introduction come from? What was, the first couple of metal bands you were listening to?
Okay, so the I was always listening to metal. That it was more of the Ozzy, Zeppelin, deep purple kind of like classic rock. I
Sure.
was into that. But in terms of this other thing, like I was in a punk band in the first time around. Like my band was like in the 70s, right? So, but this metal thing was something that didn't come until I was, oh boy. Okay. So I met, I had a really close friend, kind of boyfriend, close friend in at Interlochen at boarding school for the arts, right?
Hmm.
And he became a record producer and he started recording all these bands from Connecticut that were playing at this place called Anthrax, right? And a bunch of
Hmm.
my first, he said, Melissa, I can't get these kids through a recording session without them coughing blood. So I was like, huh? What? So he
Right.
brought this one singer, and it was nothing like I'd heard ever before. It was literally screaming. Now, I had heard it on the radio when I was in Connecticut before, and I was like, what the fuck is that racket? Because it, I was I know the New York Dolls or Ramones, like that's a whole different
Right.
thing. This,
Hmm.
I sort of went the top 40, not top 40, but like, the grunge thing with Nirvana. I said Pearl Jam, it was kind of like the anti glam rock. I was like going there, but this other thing was a completely different thing. It was more like off of hardcore
Hmm.
in New York. So I had a band in New York too, and we weren't hardcore. We were more like ska. Like it was more of
Oh,
this
okay.
James Chance and the Contortions, and like it was kind of
Oh,
uh, uh, it was eclectic, but it wasn't out of control raunchy. It was still like songs with that were 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Verse,
yeah.
chorus,
Okay.
verse,
Right.
chorus, not.
Right.
So when I
Right.
first heard it, instead of saying no, you can't do that. There's no way you can sustainably do that. I had seen a show with Megadeth and Slayer, and I saw moshing for the first time. I looked down at the sea of people, all dressed, appropriately with solidarity, hand signals, stage diving. I was like, this is beautiful. This is like it was in the '60s. I like this. Damn it, I'm too old. Like I'm way too old for this. I can't. But I wanted to be a part of it, and I actually became a part of it within weeks from that
Yeah.
phone call.
Okay.
So I studied the sound of that noise that screaming was, figured
Okay.
out how to produce it in a quiet, healthful way, put a camera down my throat at the doctor's office, and started to like figure it out. And then
Damn.
everybody told everybody, and then there was this long line of people that wanted to know how to do it. And I couldn't teach all those people. It
Hmm.
was like I just put out this little film, this little
Right. Right.
video, how to video. I didn't do it to be cool. I just wanted everybody to be safe.
Yeah. Right.
I had
Right.
no idea how successful it would be because it
Yeah.
sold a lot, like
Right.
over 100,000 copies that
Oh
DVD. So
shit.
that's a lot for a
Wow.
DVD. I mean,
Yeah.
DVDs don't
Absolutely.
sell like records.
Yeah, right, right. I mean, so now as far as you mentioned, your training and being in London and such, and then your interest in punk rock. What was it initially that drew you to punk? As far as was it kind of the attitude? Was it the style, the sound of music?
Oh man, it was like an eruption in London. It was an eruption.
Hmm.
There was like these bands that it was just it was the Sex Pistols, the Stranglers, there was something going on in America that was equally as intriguing. Over here it was the Ramones, the New York Dolls, the Ramones. Then there was this sort of movement that was the American version of the King's Road, like the
Right.
Clash, and it was something that was happening worldwide, and the English one sounded a little bit different, but the attitude was the same. We're in this together, and we don't want any bullshit. It's
Hmm.
like we don't need any, you know, uh, corporate intervention. We are rock kids. We are, it's like this kind of like rebelliousness that makes rock more authentic because that's what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
It's supposed to be a home for the the disenfranchised, the disappointed, it's like home. It's home for the weird kids. It's home for the spooky chicks.
The description right there.
That's rock. That's
Yeah,
what it's for. It's to
absolutely.
give us all a home.
Yeah. Okay. And now, you had mentioned a little bit earlier as far as, being in your own punk band and, taking on being a vocalist in that. Tell us about your times recording with that, now maybe even with the knowledge that you have, were you kind of on the right track with how you were approaching singing in a band yourself?
Oh heavens! I learned I made it up as I went along. I didn't know what the
Right.
hell I was
Okay.
doing because I was classically trained. So even the sound that was coming out of my mouth was not anything that I would. Uh, uh, I didn't know how to control it. I knew how to sing arias and opera. I learned not opera, but some arias from operas, but mostly art songs, and that's a kind of trajectory that you learn in classical music. And that is, I thought singing was, that,
Hmm.
and I got I got kind of switched out of that trance of because I did a favor for someone. I sang a song in their musical and I couldn't get it right. He goes, just sing it, just sing it. Don't put any stuff in it. I was like, what stuff? And he goes, just don't put all that stuff on it. I was like, what stuff are you talking about? And
Right.
so I had so much training that I couldn't get rid of the stuff.
Right.
So he gave me a record, a Karen Carpenter record, like the
Oh.
Carpenters, and it was
Hmm.
this song like "Just Like Me," and it was like really breathy, like this, and I felt like a dead person when I was doing it, and I got a standing ovation, and I thought, really, I took all those
Wow.
lessons to like only to do that. That's not. So then
Right.
that was a process of how not to be a dead person. It's
Yeah.
like I
Okay.
learned how not to sing and sing, and then I went the other way and I learned how not to be a corpse. So it was
Okay.
all a process. But I was very fortunate because I was working for a record label in Los Angeles, and it was this English guy named Denny Cordell. Oh, get a muffler, dude. Um, there's this guy across the street that insists on revving up this like pickup truck every.
I was like,
Sorry.
holy shit, is there a bomb?
Yeah, exactly. He's got, I know he's got a little, you know what, because he's like, "Brum, brum, brum," every day. Anyway, guys, you to rev up your motors. It's not becoming.
It's a
People
bad
make
look. Yeah.
assumptions. You got
Oh
penis
my
envy.
God.
Okay, so anyway,
That is so
back
funny.
to
Oh, Lord.
the recording thing. I was able to use the recording studio at Shelter Records, which is where Tom Petty started, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Okay.
worked for the guy that did the first Tom Petty record.
Hmm.
Um, his name was Denny Cordell, and so I was his assistant. But I also had a band, and I um, I booked the bands, and I booked my own band in his private club called Flippers. It was a roller rink private club, and the bands were in the center of the roller rink, and you would skate around. So
Holy
Tuesday,
shit.
yeah, so Tuesday was like it was called New Wave Night,
Okay. All
and I was
right.
responsible for getting all these bands, and I put my own band in there too. And he would
Right.
let me, but the bands that I were putting up there was like X, the Blasters, the Circle Jerks, the Plugs, the Textones,
Damn.
the Go Go's. This is Los Angeles, 1978,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I worked in a record store on Hollywood Boulevard, and I had the new wave section, and all the musicians in town would come to my little import section, and I would get to know them, and so that's how it happened.
Wow. Damn. That is absolutely awesome. Tell us about your live performances as far as, some of I mean, you mentioned, having that gig, but, playing places like CBGB's, was that a little bit further into your time playing live?
CBGB's was like 1980, 84,
Yeah. Okay.
85, and it was, you know, I let out one blood curdling scream, and I remember the song. I remember the moment in the song. I remember what I was thinking, and I got an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just let it rip, and I got a an injury. And instead of having surgery, I opted to go for like the 6 months of vocal rest and healing and speech therapy. And
Okay.
I'm glad I did, because that's how I figured out what I figured out. I figured out the relationship between classical singing and not classical singing, and how you're not supposed to throw everything out the window to get a sound, but it's more of a, I just learned as a result. And what I learned is basically the backbone of what I teach.
Oh, okay.
I got
Okay.
into vocal science in 1983 because I was on vocal rest. I just hit the books. And I've been, going to symposiums, conventions, reading, studying about the voice since 1985, nonstop, nonstop.
Wow.
So instead of, I didn't want to do any harm,
Mm-hmm.
like that's my one thing. My dad was a doctor, and the Hippocratic oath is above all, do no harm.
Right.
So if I'm going to be working with people's voices, certainly I'm not going to harm them as much as they harm themselves, but I don't want to like create more problems. So I learned it, and I'm still learning it. I'm still learning it.
So it's like a
So,
practice. It's like you're a doctor, in a sense as well. You're keeping the practice alive and still figuring it out today.
yep, that's right.
Wow,
That's
no
right.
shit. Okay.
So
Was there anything that you learned from your theatric training that excelled your live performance when you were in a
everything,
band?
everything,
Okay. Okay.
everything, because I went to acting school, and I went to a really famous acting school in the United Kingdom called the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. And some of the alumni, just to give you an idea of the school, Daniel Day-Lewis graduated from there. Jeremy Irons graduated from there. The lady that plays on The Crown plays Queen Elizabeth, Olivia Colman.
Oh
She
yeah.
like, there's a lot of people that finished that school. There's like four like famous schools there, and they're
Hmm.
really hard to get into. And I got into it, and just about everything I teach has some kind of anchoring in that Shakespearean training, because really, this singing gig, or whatever you want to call it, it's an acting gig more than a singing gig. It's an
Hmm.
acting gig. It's all about phrasing, delivery, communication, presence, and it's not really about the gorgeous quality of your voice, but more about the authenticity of the communication. So that's an
Sure.
acting thing.
Hmm. Okay.
It's about not doing stuff as opposed to like doing too much, right?
Right.
So
Right. Right. Or even focusing on your breathing.
yeah, funnily enough, like people who think about breathing hold their breath. So
Right.
you can't, if you think about, okay, I'm breathing, am I breathing right? You go, and you stop
I'm not
breathing.
breathing. Yeah.
So there has to be a different way of teaching breathing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's fun. Yeah. I just, looking into, as far as like your theatric, it was one thing where when I was in high school, I did theater classes for a couple of years, and there was definitely a different, there's different things with now playing in bands and being on stage that I, take credit to being in those classes and thinking of
Yes,
certain things like don't overthink this, or or you mentioned, don't concentrate too much on the breathing aspect of things. You're going to throw
never,
yourself off and not
never.
realize what the hell you're doing in front of everybody.
See, and it's always a moving target, this stuff. I mean, there's no one moment where the sound is perfection, because it's always moving. So when you think of a static thought that is a static moment in time, you will also like accompany that with non-breathing.
Yeah.
Because you're
Right.
going to a conceptual place in your brain. You go, humans, we think our thoughts are so important, so we stop breathing to think. But really, it has to go in a kind of visual language that you
Hmm.
can use, like like athletes do swing thoughts. They have this one thought that, they with the golf club, or one thought with the tennis racket or the basketball. And it's a swing
Hmm.
thought that kind of like, it's a state of being that incorporates everything. And that is where you got to get to. Otherwise, it's crap. You'll hold your
Yeah.
breath.
Right. 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 Okay. And now, tell us about you dug into, initially assisting a studio engineer, and that was kind of how this whole thing, started up with you assisting vocalists, in a safer manner with screaming.
Yeah.
You also coach vocals singing, and it's not just screaming. But for this question, I just wanted to ask, what were some of the initial techniques and exercises that you utilized for helping out, with these first couple of vocalists, and how do they differ from the traditional form that you were taught?
Okay, so first of all, before I got the screaming thing, I was already teaching for 10 years.
Yeah,
And I was
right.
teaching singing.
Yeah.
And the exercises that I was teaching, some of them were exercises that I learned, and some of them were stuff that I made up based on what I learned.
Okay.
And the concept about, okay, so the thing about voice training, no matter what the genre is, your voice is not genre specific. A voice is voice.
Right.
It doesn't change. It does change. The sound changes because you're channeling like the room or channeling the song. So
Mhm.
your voice will change naturally because you're communicating something. If
Mhm.
you think through these things, like technical things, it it would be the same as if you're talking to someone and thinking about something else when you're talking to somebody. You cannot perform like that.
Right.
If I'm talking to you
Right.
and I'm thinking about the laundry, that's what it's like to think to sing with technique, right? You cannot.
Okay.
It's impossible to do both of those things at the same time. So that's why
Mhm.
teaching singing has to be something that's translatable in a present moment, right? You have to
Oh,
have
okay.
something that
Sure.
works in the moment, right? So
Hmm.
there are these ideas that are based on vocal science, and I explain everything. But I said, man, you got to like take some acid and let go. I don't mean literally, but you have to like you have to see the sound almost. Like if you say like say the first word of the chorus is uh yeah. And so the vowel in the word yeah is eh. So you have to hear the note in your head and go eh, and then just spread this eh across the audience like you can see it. That's the kind of language that is dynamically involved in performance, not where's my tongue, where do I inhale, where do I pause for, that's all bullshit. That
Oh,
stuff doesn't
wow.
work.
Okay.
Doesn't
Sure.
work. You can't operate technically and communicate at the same time.
Huh. Wow.
You can only be
Okay.
at one place at once at the
Yeah.
same time. You can go really fast from one to the other, but you cannot be in two places at once. It's impossible.
Right. I like the don't think of the laundry while you're trying to do this.
Yes, that
That's a
is a
good one.
very good example. It's like if I'm talking to you and I'm thinking about what somebody else said to me the other day, I am not getting through to you. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah. Right. Okay. That's funny. Now, I mean, training is a vulnerable stage just in general for anybody, as far as coming into something and not being completely confident in yourself. But I wanted to ask you, as far as a trainer and a coach yourself, who can you credit to helping a little bit as far as the process of making it as comfortable and, judgment free for your clients when you're working with people in such a vulnerable stage?
Well, first of all, there's a speech that I have to give at the beginning of the training that you have to not sing and you have to not listen to what's coming out of your mouth. It's over. You're not going to ever be able to hear what you sound like for real. Even like in playback and recording, you're hearing it through a microphone. So you have to be the sound. You cannot make a sound. You have to be the sound. So that's like a spiritual shift that replaces
Right.
all the judgment. If I go, whoa, and I see like a bunch of gold particles, like, whoa, I'm throwing it. And I go, and it goes, oh, 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 and I see the O's. That is non judgmental. I'm not listening to my voice. I'm actively being a sound. And that's a different mindset. And so when you do that, it it takes the weight off. It takes the pressure off. It takes the idea of perfection out of it and it becomes more naked and vulnerable. And that's what you got to do. Those are the big
Okay.
stars, the
Okay.
ones that
Wow.
aren't
All right.
afraid to let go and to be vulnerable.
Now, from your years of just training and schooling yourself, did you kind of come up with, or not come up with, but did you kind of take that on as far as, seeing some of maybe your coaches or your teachers that was, their approach to the process?
Okay, so my life is really beautiful because there's lots of different disciplines that feed into other ones. So, as a musician, as a pianist, guitar player, songwriter, and also as a ballet dancer,
Hmm.
and also as an actress, there are certain things that you figure out about performing in general. And authenticity is about stripping away affectations. And I started to learn that when the Polish Lab Theater came to Interlaken and made us do somersault. Okay, this is so weird, but here's the task, right? We had to run across the room and do a somersault without stopping. And that was really frightening for me because I was afraid that I was going to bash my head. I didn't trust the momentum of the, centrifugal force of my head going over. And I thought that I was going to like knock my head and get a concussion. And so that trust is the kind of trust that you have to, and that kind of ability to like go anyway, like just go, like without thinking. I was starting to learn those kind of skills about acting and about dancing and about other things early on as a child. Like I started studying performance when I was 6. I was a
Oh,
piano
wow.
player and also a ballet dancer already. Like I
Yeah.
was already
Okay.
like in the practice room. Like I don't want to be a cheerleader. I don't want to be in the pep squad. I don't want to go to parties. I want to be the best in the world, the best ballerina in the world, or the best actress in the world. I had this like, I don't know. I was compensating for something, but it worked out. It
Well, I
worked out.
mean, you've certainly made your mark in what you ended up, taking on. So, you can't discredit
Yeah.
yourself completely.
Who knew? I mean,
Yeah.
you'd think that like that's not in the classified ads. Wanted lady to teach screaming.
Right,
It's not
right,
there, right?
right. That's fun. I mean, but things, everything happens for a reason. It works out for a reason, and thank God, because we can certainly credit a lot of the vocalists that are doing the great things that they're doing today because of the assistance and the help and the knowledge that you have brought to them. So, thank you, of course.
Well, thank you for like loving music. I mean, we're all in this together.
Yeah,
Music is supposed to
absolutely,
bring people
absolutely.
together. It's a connection. That's all we
Yeah.
want. We all just want to connect. We just want
Yeah.
to connect. Just don't want to be alone and sad. We want to like communicate. That's a human thing, and music is the backdrop for that. And that's why I really respect metal because that's what it's about. It's not about
Hmm.
money. It's not about, bells and whistles and limos, and it's about just having a good time with each other.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be surprised through all those mosh pits and people swinging at each other and slam dancing, as soon as the little heavy part in the song lifts, all those guys that look like they're just about to beat the crap out of each other, they're
They're
all
at the bar.
hugging and yeah, they all love each other. It's like, hey, the first
Exactly.
couple
It's just
times you
good
see that, it
fun.
throws you off, but that's
It's
exactly what
just
it
good
is.
fun.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
in 2000, let's say 5 or 6, right? That was when your first Zen of Screaming released, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
It was
so
it was made in 2004. I'm going to step inside for a second because I'm kind of cold. Hold on.
yeah, sure.
The 2004, that year is where I made it. Uh, I made it was released in 2005, but I made it in 2004.
Okay. Okay. So now, tell us about the process of how that came about, the idea to make a physical copy of something and then, how it ended up, from your practice to idea to the product that we received.
Wow. Okay, so it turned out that I knew that I just had this feeling that this needed to happen, that there were so many kids that were getting into this sound that I felt it was almost like an oops, I dropped the phone, an obligation um, to put something out to help these people because I didn't want the genre to go away. I was excited about it. And I realized that people were going to be dropping like flies because they could. What was happening is that the performance was based on the level of effort, and that the voice can't do that. The voice is not set up to effort through it. So I just knew that someone needed to like push hello, raise the alarm. And I knew I couldn't teach all the people that wanted to take. Like there was too many people
Mm-hmm.
called me. I couldn't. So I tried to teach other teachers. I still try to teach other teachers so that I'm not, I don't want to be the only one. I just want to make sure that everybody's going to be okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Because
That's
effort is, the real, this is such a paradox, but my motto, or sort of like what goes on my tombstone, is like, I love organized chaos. I
Oh
like
yeah.
the idea of chaos, but done in a very elegant way. So
Sure.
it's definitely, it has all the authenticity of chaos, but it's sustainable. I love that.
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
love that whole idea. So that actually involves disassociating momentarily from the emotion that the music infers.
Hmm.
In other words, you cannot use aggression to make aggressive noises. It's not sustainable. So one of my favorite things was figuring that out, like how to do that. That was, I always wanted to be Janice.
Yeah.
But and so when I told my parents I want to be a singer, the best singer in the world, I said, okay, honey, then you must learn properly. And I, got pushed into like arias and musical theater that I didn't hate it, but that's not that wasn't Janice.
Yeah. Right.
No one was teaching Janice.
Hmm. All right.
So Janice didn't even learn Janice. Janice just did Janice.
Yeah.
So I tried to be Janice, including the whiskey and the drugs and including the whole, I was going down with Janice.
Hmm.
Janice was the shit because Janice was figured out how to be great without being gorgeous. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
I was from Texas, right? And Texas is all about little tiny waist and big hair and staying by your man and, oh, she's the cutest thing and, like all that. And I was like a spooky chick, with the black armbands, anti-war poetry, reading Ferlinghetti and beat poets and,
Okay.
like I was a spooky chick. I did not fit in the state that kills Bambies. I call Texas the state that kills Bambies because when I was little, they were shooting deer, and I love Bambi. I couldn't deal with
Hmm.
the guns. It's useless.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, that was a little side thing.
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, the Janice sound. Janice heard her voice. She
Hmm.
almost like didn't have a voice at the end when she died. And so I was on my way to figuring that out before the metal thing started to happen. Like
Oh, okay.
I was wanting to get that, and I was still on, mayonnaise, cigarettes, like greasy food with crackers, how do you get that thing, right? And
Right.
I finally figured it out by,
Okay.
this guy from Connecticut brought the student in, and the guy was doing this sound. It was really, really loud and out of control. I said, okay, well, part of the problem here is that just knowing what I know about acoustics and stuff, you don't ever need to be that loud on a microphone.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
waste of energy. So I think, imitate. I'm a good imitator. I'm a very good mimic. That's one of my
Okay.
talents, right? Because I can do
Yeah.
different impressions, right? I mean, when
Yeah.
I was a kid, I would do, Woody Woodpecker and,
Oh, really?
like the witches and the Wizard of Oz, the Munchkins, and I like to do the voices. So I imitated the sound, right? And I imitated the sound of screaming in a quiet way, and it did not feel like screaming. And then I went to the doctor's
Okay.
office and figured out that and there's different ways to make that noise. There's different ways. There's the way that you do it when you throw up like that, but then there's a
Hmm.
techniqued way where you actually destabilize the vocal folds and you make it creaky, and that does not scrape at all, right? So it's about like being able to use vowels and actually change to a sung note and a rough note, like transitions. And you know I've been working on it for a long time. I've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
working
I
on
mean,
the technique a
absolutely.
long time, how to get people to undo the labor intensive kind of criteria for success, because it's not
Right.
about
Right.
labor.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like when I had first heard about you and, and your approach and everything, it was one of those things where it never had dawned on me before with people heard, like you hear the type of music and you hear Slayer, but it never dawned on me like, oh man, their voices might be really, really messed up from doing this. And then, I hear about you, and a buddy had introduced me to your work and different things, and I'm like, there's a proper way to scream. Like I didn't realize that that's a thing even, you know? So,
Yeah. Well,
and then hearing you talking about organized chaos, you know, it's like,
yeah.
it makes sense.
Yes, yes. It was like, that's, everything art has to, in my opinion, this is my opinion, like art is even better if it has form, if it has structure, if it
Mm,
has, um, that's what makes it art to me. It's a reassociation or representation of other things mixed together for a new idea, but it needs to be presented in like a very elegant kind of formed way. I like that.
yeah.
But
Okay.
I like the subject matter being chaos, but I like the way it's presented in a form way. And that form way is just relaxation, by the way.
Hmm.
In other words, I don't screaming is not, put your tongue here, breathe like this. Screaming is actually having the awareness to separate uh, some body parts that don't have neurological steering wheels. So, for instance, your vocal folds. If I said, "Dude, close your vocal folds at the top, but not the bottom," you don't know. There's no steering wheel there, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if
Be
I
like,
asked you to
all
go,
right.
if I asked you to go, yee, right, ee, 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 right, that's closing. Uh, not it's not exactly closing at the top. That's not a great way to say it, but it's towards the front is what. So if I go right, and then I go there's both, but I didn't go. I didn't do so. There's different ways to get the noise, and I want
Oh,
everybody
okay.
who uses noise to understand all the different ways to get it, like not just one way, like
Wow.
all the different ways, so that you have more access to more textures.
Yeah.
The more
Wow.
textures
Okay.
you have, the more things you can say, the
Yeah.
more emotions you can talk about.
Right. Okay. Wow. Was, you know, as far as with the DVD, you know, the whole experience with that, was it a positive experience working on that and getting that released, or did it become a little bit of a headache at times trying to, you know, get what it was that you wanted, you know, in this, you know, just as far as planning and what you wanted to include? I can't imagine where you started.
Oh my God, it was such an amazing, so many hours, so much editing, and it was it was very expensive, but it was worth it. It's paid for itself now. I didn't, I didn't know what I was doing back
Right.
then. The second DVD was a lot easier. Um, and the third DVD is not a DVD, it's the live classes.
Hmm.
So ZOS3, Zen of Screaming 3, is actually live online connection with me. And I like that because I break down all of the technique, and I make it so that it's organized, and you can get one on one with me so that you're not learning anything the wrong way with bad habits.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people learn the wrong way for the DVD because it's a DVD.
Right.
I
Right.
need I need to like interact with like the voice so that there's all kinds of variables. It's not a perfect thing. Like even
Right.
online voice lessons is not perfect, but it's
Hmm.
better than the DVD because it's more dynamically like responsive to all the variables that come at me
Right.
in terms
And
of
it's
different
personable.
voices. Yes,
Hmm.
yes. So that became ZOS 3.
Okay.
ZOS, there's three S's: speaking, singing, and screaming. And I teach the technique in those three contexts.
Okay.
So, first of all, I teach the technique in terms of speaking so that you don't have any distraction of pitch or screaming or any kind of texture. It's all about like the breathing I teach with speaking. I don't need to use music to teach breathing. It's all the same. And then the resonating strategy that we use for screaming, right? You should join the class. You're going to learn because it's
Yeah, I'm
all about the
listening.
space. It's all about the space in the back of the throat. So check this out. If I go, "Ee," that's the same note as "ee," right? So what's different? Same vowel, same note. It's the shape inside my throat. So these
Oh,
shapes inside the throat are open spaces. They're resonating spaces. And that is how you control high screams and low screams. It's with shapes. it's not like pitches up there that you reach for, or it's all different. Like knowing the science helps me teach it. So,
Sure. Yeah, sure.
anyway,
Wow. Okay. And
everybody go to melissacross.com and learn, because even if you're not a screamer, right, you want to learn how to like have a resonant speaking voice. And singing is, if you're a screamer and not a singer, chances are a producer's going to make you sing.
mhm. Sure.
They're
And,
going to
and that
make you
was going to be
sing.
my next question, actually, was you breaking down each of these classes, just a little bit. So, with the speaking and then the singing, so they all kind of correlate with each other, right? It's kind of like a one,
Absolutely.
two, three step.
It's
Okay.
one
And are
course.
each of them a half hour?
No, each one of them, it's 3 classes, and each one is an hour and a half. So the
Oh,
whole class
okay.
is 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks. It's like Sundays is the speak class for 3 weeks. Mondays is the
Okay.
sing class for 3 weeks. And it's in 2 time zones, right? There's separate classes. There's one
Hmm.
for Europe and there's one for Australia, and and it happens. The screaming is on Tuesdays for 3 weeks, and that you get the recordings. So I lecture and give exercises for an hour, and then I open up the floor and help people that raise their hand. And that is super therapeutic, because everybody's doing kind of the same mistakes, and I'm able to work with one person and help another just by them witnessing me working with one. So a
Hmm.
lot of people are finding a great deal of success with it. They're thanking
I,
me.
I, I I see it every day. Just whether it's through my research, for the interview here, or looking at different people commenting on videos or your posts. I see it all the time. People just praising. It's such a cool thing, and an amazing opportunity as well. For everybody that's there to learn. And the cool thing about that too is it's not like college where you're going in and you're just doing it to get a course. I mean, everybody's there to learn. So you
Yeah,
mentioning one person raising their hand, that might help somebody else that maybe didn't want to ask, or didn't
exactly.
realize that they weren't doing it right. So that's
Exactly. They're
cool.
having the same problem, but they're too shy.
Yeah.
So I work with somebody else. They go, oh, right. I get a lot of like, fan mail like that. Like, it's when you said this that it all, I would say one thing that kind of connects.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's, and every class is different. I've taught the same class so many times, and it's always different. I always say it differently every time,
Right. Okay.
every time.
How did that come about? Just as far as, I mean, I would assume with COVID going on and everything, but it really, I mean, it opens up a lot of opportunity, I feel like, for you to be able to connect with a lot more people. And, whether or not COVID happened or not, it kind of seemed like it's a good idea. It's a
Yeah,
great idea.
I
Shit.
was really prepared for COVID because I'd already done the classes for a year before
Oh,
COVID
okay.
had hit. And the reason
Hmm.
I developed it is because my mother got really sick, and I wasn't happy with the home care that she was getting, and I needed to move there. I needed to be
Oh,
with
okay.
her. So I made those so that I could be transient, I could go to Texas whenever I needed to. And it turned out to work out for other things as well. So
Sure.
thanks, Mom. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
She passed. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
that's
Well,
okay.
but
Rough year.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. That's one thing with COVID. So many people are complaining about, can't get their hair done, and there's a lot of hardships that have happened. But you know what? As far as, if you look at, even this process, you got to know that she's looking down on you, and helping you with the success of this thing, because it's huge. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I wanted to make sure my mom had the best possible life every second. So it was
Beautiful.
worth it, and it was a gift in an ugly package in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Right.
But
Right.
well, ultimately, that's what it always is. Gifts
Yeah.
always come in the ugliest packages, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yikes. Just to go, with something along with this, if you can tell us, like, through all the years, different artists that you've worked with, and without any names, necessarily, but can you tell us about an instance or a time where you broke from your normal approach and overcame a client not grasping a task at hand, just something where you're just like, all right, everything that I normally dig into here, I've gone years and years. I'm like, all right, this is what I got to do here. You know, is there anything that comes to mind?
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because there's this one. There's a man, a wonderful man named Danny Filth that is the singer for Cradle of Filth.
Yeah.
And Danny Filth is a very intelligent person and a very theatrical person as well. And he also is a believer in, will and, Aleister Crowley and like some of the more esoteric occult kind of belief systems, right? And I he wasn't getting like the directional kind of launching vowels kind of thing, so I turned them into spells.
What the
I was like, cast a vowel to the north, away, like it was ridiculous. I, I
Oh
just
my
made it so it was
God.
all like, like it looked more like Harry Potter than a voice lesson, but I was like using the imagery of like, channeling energy and sound, and like I was going way out. Like, it was, that's what yeah,
Oh
sometimes I
my
have to be
God.
quick on my feet.
Yeah, I guess so. Dear Lord, I was not expecting that, but God, I'm glad that I asked that. Holy shit, that is funny.
It
Wow,
was pretty
that
funny.
that is beautiful. I love that. Wow. Well, look, this is wrapping up our interview. This has absolutely been amazing and such a great
Thank you for
time.
having
I
me.
so much appreciate your time. I do have one finale question, but this is your opportunity to just tell everybody where they can get Speak, Sing, Scream, and what you have going on.
Okay, so you just go to melissacross.com and you can get my old DVD, right? And you can get a digital copy of it. That's the only place you can get it digital. I own it, and you can support me if you buy it at my website. Amazon has my DVD, and you can get the real thing from Amazon. That's through Alfred Music. I still get paid, but not as much as when you get it from me directly. And I don't care about the money anyways, just as long as you have the information. And at
Sure.
melissacross.com, you can sign up for classes with me, and they are so inexpensive. My private lessons are stupid expensive. I apologize for that. I can't help it. And because I can't teach as much as I used to, and there's too many people that want it.
Mhm.
But these classes, for the price of 1.5 private lessons, you get 13 hours of vocal training, and it's recorded, so you always have it. And it's everything I know, everything I teach everybody. It's all in those classes for the
Oh,
price of one lesson and 1.5 lessons. So definitely you should do it.
huge, huge.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
you
is
should do
absolutely
it.
an awesome opportunity. And for anybody that has any questions, go to her Instagram and just look at some of the comments and some of the things that people are saying. It's ridiculous. I don't know too many times I've seen such unanimous decision. People just saying,
Because I love
God,
my
this stuff
job,
is
man.
beautiful.
I
Yeah,
love my
yeah, and it
job.
shows.
I
It
love my
certainly
job.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all about
love it.
love. It's
All
all
right.
about the love, man.
So for this finale, this is going to be kind of a out of left park, little silly one here, but I
Okay.
started thinking because I was digging through doing some research about you, and at one point somebody had called you the Scream Queen. So in my channel, a lot of times I interview people from the metal and music communities, but then also people from horror movies and film. And a lot of times I think of Scream Queens being in horror films. So I wanted to ask you, as far as for the top three musical Scream Queens. So myself, I consider you one of the Scream Queens of all time. Just the work that you have contributed and everything, you go down in history, an absolute legend. But if you had to pick three of your favorite female vocalists in metal, rock and roll, punk, who would be your top three musical Scream Queens?
Oh, wow. Um, See, that's are you talking about just screaming? Or are you talking about singing? Because some of my
Vocalists.
vocalist period,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Well, okay, so
I say
I
Scream
that's
Queens to kind of go with the the
yeah, yeah.
title.
Okay, so I think I like the technique of Courtney Duplant from Spirit Box. Formerly, I
Yeah.
wrestled a bear once.
Yeah.
I really love Tatiana from Ginger. Very good sound there. I like practically everybody, that all the girls that are actually surviving are fantastic. Alyssa White
Hmm.
Glue's absolutely fantastic
Yes.
performer
Yes.
and very disciplined. Lauren Hart from Once Human, great screamer. Um, there's so many. There's so
Right.
many. Um, you asked me who I'd like to work with in terms of a female. I'd actually like to work with Adele because I think I
Oh
can help
yeah.
Adele.
Oh,
I
okay.
really think I can
Okay.
help like her like understand something because she's had some terrible like emotional stress about her voice,
Hmm.
and I've been following her for a long time, and I feel like I could help, and I want to help. I always want to help.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I
So
mean, that'd
that's
be
who I really
huge.
want to work with is Adele.
Well, you can't say that it's not going to happen because I mean, look at all of that you've
Oh,
achieved
who
so
knows?
far.
Who knows? Who
That
knows?
is amazing.
Who
Wow. Well,
knows?
and great answer. And it's, I don't want it to seem like it's, you're discrediting other people. This was just kind of a question as far as, off the top of your head, a couple of people that you had in mind. And I absolutely love that. You're very thoughtful and, you have been absolutely amazing, for our time. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you so
All
much. And
right.
my favorite horror movie, The Tingler.
Yeah.
Do you know The
Oh
Tingler?
my lord, I do. I did. They had it in the theaters. They had the little things crawling across your feet and
That
the
scared
seat
that was me.
shaking.
I was one of those little kids that were freaking
Oh my god,
out.
I was about to wrap this up. How can I? Oh my lord, you saw it in theater.
I did.
Holy shit! So you had the whole experience, or did
Oh,
you end
all
up
the
seeing
whole
a?
experience, like in the bit, they had this intro. It's like, and you will be happy, like it gave you instructions to what to do if you felt one crawling on your leg. And oh my God, it was like, oh,
Oh my god, that was one of the earlier memories I had of horror movies having an interactive experience, as far as, I'd been into collecting and loving movies, and I feel like it was probably my parents that had said, oh well, when it came out in theaters, you would go and you'd sit down and they would instruct you on if you felt something or a breathing on your
yes,
neck or something. And I'm like,
yes.
what? They do that? And this was that was like,
It
what
was the
was it,
scratch and
60s or
sniff.
50s?
It was the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
early
Okay.
60s. It was like early
60s.
60s,
Okay.
late 50s, early 60s. But
Okay.
I was very small. So
Mm-hmm.
I was in the more of the scratch and sniff. They gave you these cards and you'd scratch off
Yeah.
like a thing and you'd smell it and it stinks like
Oh my gosh.
it was so
That is
funny.
amazing.
Anyway,
Oh
that's
my
that's
Lord.
my
Oh my
upbringing.
Lord.
That's for part
I
two, okay?
that is for part two. Absolutely. We will dig into, I wanted to talk about your musical ability and, the career that you have had thus far with all this and your training and amazingness. I'm going to have you back on to talk some movies at some point.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you so, so much, Melissa. This has been
Thank you. It's been
awesome.
an honor. Thank you so much.
You take care. I'll be picking up the DVD. I'm not a vocalist, but I might, become one just to go and come in your classes and come hang out.
Oh, come, just call me. I'll work it out for you. I'll work it out
Beautiful.
for you. Okay.
Beautiful.
I'll work
Thank you
that out.
so, so
Okay.
much. All
Bye
right.
bye. Bye.
Very, very nice. This has been
Be safe.
awesome. The
Be
Lo-Fi
safe.
Horror Guy, Melissa Cross. Everybody take care. Bye.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.